Hello everyone. This was a good week of chapters, with all the major chapters having a more or less power-up moment to them, for the most part, outside of a few, as well as friendship seemingly taking quite the center stage for others. That's not to say it was a bad week by any stretch of the imagination, as many of the chapters seemed to be kicking off into a higher gear, in a manner of speaking. There'll be no One Piece next week. That's fine, as this week's chapter was very good and leaves quite a bit of speculation to be done. So we're starting off with One Piece. Chapter 1028, and this was a good chapter with several developments and ridiculous power-ups and power moves, such as the revelation that CP0 still wants Nico Robin because she's very important to the pirate world for her ability to read poneglyphs, and that if by the off chance Kaido loses, the government will take over Wano, having ships already en route to take over the island, just in case, though the members that are on Onigashima currently don't believe Kaido will lose. We see that Momo is still struggling to conjure up the clouds he needs to save Onigashima, and Yamato abandons him, in a manner of speaking, to go try to take care of the explosives, giving them a mission to at least try to save the day in case Momo fails, leaving that up in the air as a genuine option, because Yamato can succeed and get rid of the explosives, leaving it that the island will just crash, fall, and be destroyed, but no giant explosion killing everyone, because Momo couldn't get the job done. Or Momo gets the job done, and their mission ends up being just an added helpful bonus to ensure things work out right. Then we see the continued fight between Queen and Sanji, seeing that Sanji is more or less struggling against Queen and his abilities as a cyborg, as well as a very tough dinosaur Zoan user. However, Sanji's body is still acting up and causing him to be a bit more uncomfortable than he usually would be. His attacks are still very strong, his powers are doing what they're supposed to do. However, the battle is still at a bit of a standstill when Oda reveals that he still has no idea how dinosaurs work, by having it that Queen, who is a Brontosaurus, is somehow able to shoot out his neck and tail like he's a snake, leaving his legs behind. Which is the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever seen at all, as it doesn't make any sense. I'm at a loss for words at how little Oda seems to know about dinosaurs, and that he just keeps making it up on the fly. I think that would be funnier than if he actually did know and just is making it up. I don't know which is worse, but no matter what, it's ridiculous. Queen's cyborg abilities also allowed it that the body he left behind is also still equipped with different types of mechanical weaponry, and if he says its name, it'll fire, but Queen's a bit of a doofus and accidentally shoots himself twice. However, because Sanji was already so beaten up from it and crushed by his vice grip, there wasn't an issue. He believed that Sanji would be down for the count and that he would be done. However, it is lastly revealed that Sanji has awakened the Germa abilities within him and is now the same as his brothers and sister, being nearly indestructible in body and being basically unstoppable, especially with him and his abilities, already cultivated in a normal body. So Queen goes to attack him, but then his sword breaks, showing that Sanji's body is now nearly indestructible. So now the power dynamic of the One Piece crew changes quite drastically with this, as now, as I've seen certain people joke, I think King of Lightning was joking about it, that Sanji is now stronger than Zoro and can beat him down, which I think is really funny turn of events, especially for how Zoro is struggling so heavily against King, where Sanji's now just taking attacks left and right and not even remotely registering them. He's more pissed that he's now like his brothers and sister, instead of paying attention to the fight with Queen. So that was the chapter. I thought it was pretty great with the continued fighting of Queen and Sanji, as well as the revelation that CP0 is still after Robin, as well as trying to get Wano under the government's rule. That was a bit of a shocking turn of events in a manner of speaking. We know that they probably wanted Wano, but to be so shameless into grabbing the island while it's at its weakest point, it just shows how unhero-like the world government is. So overall, I'd give that chapter an A. I thought it was very entertaining and very info heavy, as well as having some good action and silly comedy. Now we're on to Black Clover, chapter 308, and this was a good chapter. It was a great chapter, with a continued fight of Langris and Fenrir versus Xenon, where Langris and Fenrir are seemingly taking the fullest advantage of what their powers can do, and even get so far as to attack Xenon directly, slashing him in half. And to them, in theory, it should have worked. However, it doesn't work because their magic was not able to destroy the devil's heart that Xenon acquired. We see that Yuno is struggling to get back up despite seemingly knocked into a room filled with grimoires. He's struggling and sees that Langris and Fenrir are in extraordinarily bad shape, and Xenon has seemingly won. Yuno has his sort of typical hero moment where he's upset that he's not able to perform as well as he wanted to, as well as recalling all the memories he's had up until this point, and questioning whether it was worth it all, and if he is strong enough to continue on. And again, the sort of entertaining factor of power of friendship as he thinks of Asta and their rivalry, and begins to try to stand up, despite him and his elemental spirit, who I can't think of her name at the moment. Belle, I think it was. Him and Belle are struggling. They're pretty much beaten down pretty good. When he sees the spirit that's pretty much been residing within him, the son of Licht and Tatia, who was grimoire he had inherited in the Clover Kingdom. However, now in the Spade Kingdom, as he is actually of Spade Kingdom royal blood, he has now gained that grimoire as well, and it seems as though he is able to use both grimoires, both Licht's son's grimoire as well as his own. Having both Clover and Spade Kingdom grimoires seemingly is allowing him to gain a new level of power with this new grimoire, and it'll be interesting to see what it is and how it works. We also get at the very end of the chapter the name of the chapter, as well as what Yuno's name is, which is Grand Burial. So it'll be interesting to see what his magical ability is, as well as how strong it is for the first fight. So I thought it was a good chapter. I thought it was pretty great. Seeing the defeat of Finral and Langris while Yuno was in a desperate state, I thought was a pretty good decision on that part. And then Yuno's power-up making quite a bit of sense in its own right. Especially seeing as how he's not from the Clover Kingdom, so perhaps, in a manner of speaking, Yami would be able to get another grimoire if he were to go back to his homeland, where you get a grimoire wherever you're from, type of thing. Maybe multiple people can have multiple grimoires, so if the whole continent that the Clover Kingdom, Spade Kingdom, Diamond Kingdom, and Heart Kingdom are on, maybe they all can get grimoires from each other and be even stronger, maybe. But at least for now, Yuno has a new power-up, and it doesn't seem too out of place. Like I said, I don't quite know what his power is. His natural power, not the soul that resides in him's power, but we'll end up seeing. It also adds a bit of world building, which I thought was pretty nice. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A, because the fighting was good, and a lot of the decision-making I thought was a very interesting way to go about doing it, and I look forward to seeing how this fight continues. From the way it looks, I still doubt Yuno will be able to take on Xenon one-on-one and be able to defeat him, but he might be able to stall out enough time for the rest of the reinforcements to arrive to actually help out and beat Xenon in the end, just by sheer numbers by that point. So now we're on to Undead Unluck, chapter 82, and this was a good chapter, showing the continued action between Billy and Andy as they fight across the city, each one trying to one-up each other and win, with Andy getting more and more gruesome as he goes, leveling up his negator power, and observing that Billy is only able to use so much of the negator power, seeing as how it's not his own, where those who use their negator power often if they can get over the trauma that it caused them. They can use their power more to the fullest of their extent, as well as level it up at all. So Andy is able to make, in a way, kind of clones of himself through his blood, because his blood seemingly is one of the most powerful things in this universe, and is able to get the one-up on Billy and really take advantage of the fight, leading to a bit of a stalemate where both are at odds with each other and have each other at a disadvantaged point, pointing a gun basically at each other's head while they begin to discuss things, as Billy doesn't believe anyone's strong enough to face God, and that the weak should not be around outside of giving him strength. Andy, however, does not believe that, and believes that they are all strong and they should all go after God together, and decides that he wants to prove it to Billy and show him by having them watch Fuko versus Spring. This leads to, well, what will happen next chapter, which is Fuko versus Spring in their one-on-one, as Fuko made it to the top. That's significant because this is the first kind of arc where Fuko is completely on her own and having to take on an extraordinarily powerful villain or character, because I don't know if Spring is necessarily a villain or not, but she's all on her own. No Andy help, no nothing, as Andy cuts his own head off and allows Billy to take control of it and capture it in order to believe in him to go watch Fuko succeed and taking down Spring. It was a gutsy move to do that, especially as the Under had a better shot of winning with Andy completely taken out of the equation. But Andy's putting his faith in his friends and the person he loves to go and win the hearts of the other team, to hopefully have a united front against God whenever Ragnarok finally befalls the world. So that was the chapter. I thought it was good. I thought the fighting between Andy and Billy was very good, showing probably the two strongest characters in the entire world, duking it out quite a bit, with Andy and him basically pulling off a tie to leave it up in the air on who would actually win or not, though it looked like Andy was getting the upper hand, and if Andy had wanted to win, he might have done so. But that is left up in the air, so overall I'd give this chapter a B. It was good, it showed good fighting, and Andy's power continues to be more and more gruesome as it goes, and Fuko is now versing Spring, which should be a fun, interesting interaction, especially as I don't think it'll be an actual physical confrontation, and more of a dice game to see whose luck is better or worse, in a manner of speaking. So now we're on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 81, and we see that the general public have now finally found out that Mash, a non-magical individual, is taking the Divine Visionary exams. They are not very happy about this and storm the place where Mash and Co. are staying at. Mash and Co. stayed up for 15 hours playing the card game BS, and eventually, as Dot thought they were all playing for pride, everyone quits just as it seemed as though it was going to go on forever. The crowd arrives, things go downhill very quickly, but Mash's friends are able to stand up for him, namely Lemon and Dot. Finn and Lance try to continue to comfort Mash, but no one confronts the crowd except for those two. Lemon is a bit ridiculous, though she does defend Mash quite a bit better than Dot, who basically insults the crowd with Mash's words, saying that he's Mash's agent and that everyone can suck it if they don't like Mash in the tournament, which made everyone get more and more angry and make it worse, where Lemon just said that he was married to her even though they aren't, and they think she's crazy. The crowd starts throwing rocks at Lemon and Dot. She continues to stand up for Mash, but no one else in the crowd cares, especially one individual who plans on capturing Mash and instigates the crowd to believe that she has been corrupted by Mash. They throw more rocks, and Mash ends up protecting Lemon. However, the one mage who instigated them further believes he is able to capture Mash, only to find that Mash is, well, Mash, and is able to destroy everything, eventually throwing his spell back on him. Mash basically says that it doesn't matter, and he plans on making it okay to not have magic in the world, but everyone starts getting more pissed until Wahlberg arrives and cuts it off. congratulating Mash in the fact that Mash has great friends that stood up for him. Mash plans on winning this final battle, he calls it, and the whole thing is gearing up towards this battle for the Divine Visionary exam. Now, when he says final battle, I think he's just meaning here with this exam, because there's no way this ends here. With Mash defeating Demina, whenever that happens, the next few chapters, or about 20 from now, you can go either way. I have a feeling that he'll think it's over and that he can go home or just be able to hang out in the school, but he'll find that he has to now do divine visionary things, which he really doesn't want to do. It'll be something more ridiculous than just him simply being done, but I think it'll work ridiculously well no matter which way it takes its story. Whether it actually finishes or it continues with more wacky shenanigans. So overall, I'd give that chapter a B. It was good, very funny, and very friendship-oriented. Having that Lemon and Dot stand up for Mash, despite the wild, frenzied crowd wanting to take Mash's head. That's impressive loyalty and a sign of good friendship between them. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days, chapter 42, and this was a good chapter, showing the definitive conclusion to the last chapter as well as the beginning of the next fight. As we see that Lo and Shin passed out after their ordeal, Saw believed he was able to escape, only to run right into the arms of one of the top assassin characters, I don't remember his name, who ends up killing him in one swift blow. Shen and Lo wake up, and we find out that Lo has quite the history in her family of drinking weird alcohols and seemingly powering up. Lo and Shen realize that they're late and have to run back to the store, and we see Osuragi and Shishibe doing some sort of ritual they seemingly always do at a temple. They're having a meal before going fully in, and Nagumo calls saying that he's on the trail of another one of the death row inmates and asks if they want to go, but then insists that they sit it out because they're in the middle of something. Shishibe doesn't seem to be too bothered by it, but Osuragi wants to get one of the serial killers, so she rushes down her food and does the rest of her ritual in the temple, going to pray and make her wish. And her wish is that she wants to get at least one of the serial killers, which just so happens to happen as one of them, who I can't remember his name, is right behind her and attacks her, but she's too quick and shows her superior strength by completely decimating this assassin, as Shishibe has no idea where she went. So that was the chapter. It was fairly quick when I look back on it, and it was very good. Between the conclusion of the last one with Saw's death by another one of the top assassins, as well as Shin and Lo making it back home, to Osuragi and Shishibe taking on one of the new serial killers, taking on one of the remaining ones. Here, though I don't know if Shishibe is going to make it to them before Osuragi takes this guy out, I thought it was good seeing her display of vast power, and it'll be fun to see how this fight ends up unfolding in the long run. So overall, I'd give this chapter a B. I thought it was good seeing the conclusion of the last one and the beginning of a new fight for at least one of the more powerful members of the assassin group that we've been following for quite some time. Now, will this fight end in a spectacular winning fashion for the good guys? Probably, seeing as how these are the top two assassins in the entire Assassin Association. So I imagine this isn't going to be a tough fight for them unless someone super powerful comes in and ends up striking down the pair as they're taking on this new serial killer. So now we're on to the Hunters Guild, Red Hood, chapter 14. And this was a good chapter as the 42nd final disembarkation exam ends in this chapter, as we see that Bonkers is continuing to try to recruit the brother and sister pair, as the rest of the crew believes in Velo and wants to help him succeed in what he wants to do, as well as have everyone pass. It doesn't necessarily mean they all have to be friends in the end, but they all want to pass the exam. That's at least why Porchin is there, to pass and to use them to get into the further parts of the guild. Velo starts to doubt himself quite a bit because he's not as cool as all the others he's befriended along the way so far, from Nulo, who can breathe gale-forced winds, to Miguel being able to cast magic, Bonkers being super strong, Porchin being nimble, and Miro having his slimes. He feels that he doesn't have anything at all that can be useful, but the guard that guards their cell tells him that he is the whirlwind that brought all these people together. It was his plan, and thus he is the eye of the hurricane, the calm before the storm, and the reason they are all doing all of this. Telty's sister wants to work with Bonkers and co., but Telty is still very remiss to do so, and doesn't really want to do it at all. Telty eventually does agree, however, and the plan is to have it that Bonkers pretends to be caught, with Telty's sister and Porchin signaling for Telty to run past as they distract Grim to get to the caged prisoners, and once everyone is unleashed, they will all attack the two examiners, Grim and Debonair. The battle is fierce, but eventually Telty is able to get to the cage and release everyone. Debonair is able to make it through their trap that they set before, and the battle is quite intense, as once all the prisoners are freed, they all attack Grim and Debonair, and eventually, just at the last minute, Velo and co win. The 42nd final debarkation exam, everyone passed, and they all thank Velo for it. It's a good way to end it, that Velo was able to actually succeed in his plan to have everyone pass. It'll be very interesting to see who stays as a main character, quote unquote, in this plot. I suspect Miro, Telty, Velo, Grim, and maybe one more will be a very big center point, but you never know. Like I said, it could be anyone, it could be the whole group here, and we just learn little by little about these people as it goes for quite some time. This series could go forever if it really wanted to. You never know. But for this part, the debarkation exam, it was good, and it showed a lot of what this series could be, with various characters, desires, wants, and abilities doing what they can to actually win when they need to. Velo continues to be an interesting character, and the whole dynamic between everyone continues to be very interesting. I look forward to seeing where it goes and what the guild actually looks like once they make it there, as even Debonair is excited that everyone passed. So overall, I'd give this chapter a B. I thought it was good, and specifically, it showed a lot of good character work. Between the continued growth for Bonkers and Telty, as well as the confidence boosting effects of having someone tell Velo that he was as important as the others, despite not having any special ability to him. He has at least a way of leading people and inspiring others. So that was all the chapters. I thought they were all very good. I don't believe there was Jujutsu Kaisen this week. I believed it was off. My Hero was fine with at least a reveal and a twist-ish type ending where Shigaraki is going to verse Stars and Stripes right off the bat. Will he succeed? Who knows? Will they fail? Probably. Knowing My Hero, we probably won't see any of it in the end. Everything else was good. Yazakura family had it that the father is actually extremely powerful and took pretty much everyone out. Nero was great. Elusive Samurai was good. Blue Box was good. I thought it was a good week of chapters. No One Piece next week, but that's fine. That usually leads it to that some other stories step up in that time that they're off, and then when One Piece returns in 2 weeks' time, it'll just keep going. So, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.